Here we go. My name's Todd.
This is Cathy.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen Parenting Radio. This is podcast number 764, I think. Let me look it up. 765. Check that. Why listen to Zen Parenting Radio? Because you'll feel outstanding, and always remember our motto, which is that the best predictor of a child's well-being is a parent's self-understanding. On today's show, Cathy's got some things cooked up, and you and I have been watching a show on Netflix.
Well, my thing that I, as you just said, have cooked up.
You've cooked it up.
It's from that show.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Perfect. But we didn't Netflix and chill. We just Netflixed.
Todd.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Because I now know what that means.
Right. I'm glad.
If you don't know what that means, you got to go last week, because we talked about slang with these younglings.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked a lot of, you quizzed me and I knew none of them and you knew most of them. Or
Correct.
Like that.
Yes. That's a good one to make sure you use correctly.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I'm just testing our audience to see if they've been listening lately, sweetie.
Got it.
You with me?
I'm with you.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with the government. What's that from, sweetie?
It's from My Blue Heaven.
Yes.
Todd has about 4 or 5 things that he says all the time. And you do them right before we start a show.
Really?
You do Rex and Effect for a couple minutes.
All I wanna do is zoom, 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 mana, boom, boom.
It's like he gets into this weird state of consciousness and he does the same thing. And I sometimes want to be like, don't do that. But I also feel like, why does it bother
Sweetie,
me?
I'm the duck shaking everything off, getting ready for the podcast.
I wish you had new things to say. But maybe I say the same things and I'm not aware of this.
There's nothing new over here.
You say the same things.
I know. I just said.
Oh, I get it. You're right. You're right. Sorry. I misunderstood
I was
that.
agreeing with you, my darling.
Got it.
My voice sounds very deep, and I think it's from a long, awesome weekend. You have a Zen parenting moment, but we talked about it on the podcast last week. So
yeah, so we don't need to. I did a Zen parenting moment. It's on Substack now, FYI. If you are already subscribing, you're getting it. But if you are on Substack, you can follow or subscribe. And last week I talked about slang. I also have a new Instagram page just for me, Cathy Adams.
Just you, sweetie, not me.
Right. Not Todd has his own Instagram page.
Do I?
Yes. You have your own page.
Do I post it?
No, you don't post it, but you have one.
Nice. I'm so happy about having that one. How many followers do I have?
I have no idea.
How many people am I following?
You have one picture up there and it's Calvin and Hobbes. That's all you have.
Isn't that all we need as human beings?
Maybe.
I think so.
I just wanted my own page because one of my kids, not all my kids, but she doesn't love me commenting on her pictures of Zen Parenting Radio, because then people are like, what is that? And then, I think it can be difficult. I was actually just listening to a podcast this morning. When your parents are in a world of either, like my parents were teachers, that was tough. Your dad was a cop, that's tough. If your parent was a minister, preacher, something like that, that can be tough. And I think if your parents are in the parenting realm, I don't know if it's tough or it's just something that I think we handled it well as the girls were growing up, because I stayed pretty much away from their school, like let them have their own lives. Like I wasn't like trying to get super involved.
Except for the fact that we went in and taught at our daughter's grade school about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, but that was like 1 year. And that teacher we knew really well. And JC didn't really care, at least not at that point.
The reason JC didn't care is because we're awesome.
Like, I'm not saying we've never done anything in this community. We do things all the time. We used to host movies at York Theater. Like, we've been in the community, but I've tried to not be super over involved in their school stuff. Right. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I think there's like this just default, like parents are embarrassing. That's just the bottom line.
Well, and it's
especially if we're doing what we're doing.
Right. And how can we honor that space? Like, I think I told you this before, we said it on a podcast before, but all my girls are super supportive of what we do and they're very proud and they love it. But there's also this line of like, okay, but I don't need my friends listening to your podcast. You know what I mean? Like, and there's nothing embarrassing about them per se, but it's just kind of a line. Yeah. But then I told you at the same time, like Cameron was like, yeah, but then when people like try and say things like, oh, your parents do a podcast just like everyone else, she gets really defensive about it. Like, no. They've been doing it forever. So there's just this line that I try and walk with them. I think it's something that I ask them, do you want me to do this? Do you not want me to do this? And my daughter doesn't care if I like her pictures. None of them do. But commenting as Zen Parenting Radio is something else. So my point is I wanted Cathy Cathy Adams so I could comment as myself. I could post things that have nothing to do with you. I could talk about pop culture because I like to do that. I could just do
Sweetie,
my own stuff.
What on earth do you have that has nothing to do with me?
A lot. Like I like to do a lot of feminist stuff. I like to post about menopause. I like to talk about, like I said, I posted something about Greta Van Fleet today. Like, I'm not saying you don't care about these things, but you don't do anything on our social networking, but you get all the credit of it. Does that make sense?
I work so hard at it. It's not even funny. Doesn't Todd do a great job with everything?
Credit is a gross word because it's not like I'm keeping tabs on credit, but people are like, yeah, Zen Parenting Radio. And I'm doing all that on social media.
This is what I'm in charge of pressing play on the music.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of what I do.
You are a producer of the show and you are great.
I do that, sweetie.
And all the clips.
And then I open my mouth and something comes out.
Yes.
And then I edit it, which basically means I put the outro on and then that's it.
And then you do a great job. Like I couldn't do this show if you were not here. It's not, but it's like something.
You want to know what happened if you weren't here on this podcast?
What?
Let's just pretend. I'm going to pretend with you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Zen Parenting Radio. This is Todd Adams. This is podcast number 765.
I know what you do. You'd talk about men living all the time.
How about the PGA?
How about the PGA?
How about Shoffley? Do you see that putt go in at the end?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the guy who got arrested.
No, I'm not talking about Scheffler. I'm talking about Shoffley.
Yeah. So first of all, the fact, because I've mixed this up twice this weekend and I feel like people have been annoyed at me. Say those two names again.
Shoffley
and
Scheffler.
Okay. They're so close.
Yeah, they are.
The fact that the winner sounds just like the guy who's ranked number one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a common mistake.
That would be it. I don't understand how people do singular podcasts. You do great on that. I know you do great.
I like doing that.
I just be like, I need somebody across from me to talk to.
Yeah, I think it's much better having the two of us. I think if I did a podcast by myself, people wouldn't like it either. Like, and I say that, but that's not fair because there's a lot of people I listen to who do podcasts by themselves and they're great. Well, a lot of other parenting podcasters do. And I listened to, there was one woman I used to follow. She was a parenting coach and she talked the whole time. And then there's some writer podcasts that I listen to and they talk the whole time.
I used to love Rob Bell. I don't listen to Rob. I love Rob Bell, but I don't listen to his podcast anymore. I'm looking at my feed right now and think if there's any Morgan Housel, he's a financial guy. He does these little 5-minute podcasts, but almost all of them are conversational.
Well, and everything is, some people are really gifted in that area of like talking and making their points on their own. It's almost like I don't want to call it a speech, but they do a good job bringing it all together. And then some people, depending on who the listener is, they either prefer a conversation or they prefer some kind of lesson. And so this is all very in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong, but I know you and I like to have conversation. But interestingly, we've said before, Todd and I get inundated with emails about, hey, I have a new book. Let me be on your show. Or I've, all these people who are looking to use podcasts as a way to market their material. And we know right away if they listen because we don't really have guests.
Yeah. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah. Like we do sometimes. I know people are like, well, yeah, I've been on it. Or sometimes we do.
One out of every 40.
Exactly. So, and there are friends of ours that we would do anything for.
Bottom line is I just don't want to share my space. That's the bottom line.
You know what it is for me?
What?
Once these people are here and it's scheduled, and usually, to be honest, the people that we have had on, except for a few that I can think of, are people that I really admire, where I'm like, I want to meet this person, right? Because I've read their book, or we've been talking and I'm in contact with this person, or like they're good friends. You know what I mean? They're already people that we talk to all the time. And I can't remember what I was going to say about it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm the one bringing, I was just going to say, I'm the one bringing them in. You are very chill about it. And once they're here, I'm really glad. But prior to that, I have a lot of concern about, will we be able to do it on time? Schedule conflicts. It becomes more difficult to do a podcast when you're depending on other people.
Well, and I don't know if this relates at all, but I had a big men living weekend this weekend, and one of my good friends stayed with us last night. And this has to do with taking care of people. And you're like, okay, are we all set with our overnight guest? I'm like, yeah, we're all set. You're like, you had these concerns about blankets and pillows and
Well, they're not,
bathrooms and I don't have any of those concerns.
I know. And like all things, I think I can come in with being less anxious, but I think you should care, because if you're going to invite someone into your home, you can't just be like, okay, here, like, people need to feel welcome and they need to understand, where they go to the bathroom, and here's your towel and here's the expectation
Yeah,
for
there
the
was
day.
no setup
Yeah.
for me. I'd be like, in the closet,
Right.
That's where the bathroom is. Have a good night.
And it doesn't work that way for most people. I totally, I give you like lots of props for your chill demeanor, but I also think sometimes there's like an ability to be a little more conscientious, because then sometimes that does end up falling on me, where I'm going to clean it up.
Yeah.
I'm going to put everything away. And you're like, what? And I'm like, if I didn't do that, you would be concerned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What's funny is we have a pull-out couch and he didn't pull it out. I said, why didn't you pull it out? He's like, I don't want to make the bed.
Yeah, understandable.
And he's like,
I think a lot of people do
but
that.
he's really tall and that couch does not accommodate. So
not built for
anyway,
men.
I don't know how we got started on that. All right. So real quick.
Yeah.
Team Zen.
Yeah.
If anybody wants some Zen parenting swag, water bottle, warm, fuzzy socks, perhaps.
And then just one more thing, because if you give them too many things to think about.
Okay.
Fuzzy socks, a water bottle, and how about the mug?
Yeah, the mug.
Okay.
So if you sign up this month, you will get one of those things for free. I'm just going to send it out when you sign up. I do want to say hi to Danielle in Evanston, who was with us, and then she fell off, and now she just rejoined us.
People do that a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think they fall off because they don't like it. I think that they're like,
busy.
you know what? I have a few months off because of what's going on. And then they come back when they, want something. And I let me say that differently. They come back when they're ready.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. It's part of why it's part of why I like to say month by month, because our lives get busy. And if I was paying for something and I wasn't using it at all, I'd be frustrated.
Yeah.
So
just click on Team Zen in the show notes to learn more.
Okay.
All right. Love on the Spectrum.
Yeah. So all of my girls watch Love on the Spectrum on Netflix, and they've told me about it, especially my oldest daughter, JC. She loves it. And she has been asking me a lot, have you seen this, or do you know who this is, or whatever. So Todd and I finally started watching 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago? Not even.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're going fast.
I know.
And that's what's so interesting.
This is a show I can binge.
Yes. And I said to Todd last night, because we were watching one, this is one of the only shows I have no idea where my phone is. Like, there's a lot of shows I watch, and oftentimes they're like an hour long, or it's a movie. And so I sometimes check things on my phone or whatever, like there's moments where I look away, and I don't do that.
You're locked in.
I'm locked in.
So some people, not everybody knows this show. So will you explain what it is? Or maybe I'll play the trailer.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is the trailer. I don't know if I should do season 2 trailer. I just do one of them.
Just do one of them.
Are you looking for love?
Yes, unquestionably so.
I don't want to be alone. I want to find someone.
I haven't dated in 33 years.
Oh, you could imagine I have to kiss many frogs to find the right guy.
Nope. Everyone is different.
Correct.
Whether you're on the spectrum or not.
We are, however, all looking for the same thing: respect, understanding, and a whole lot of love.
My autism affects my social interactions. We're going to Google date topics. Do you see this in bold right here? The stakes are so much higher.
Through this process, he might find love.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's 2 minutes long. Is that enough?
That's good.
Okay.
Partner would be somebody who can depend on me. We want to depend on each other.
To have a lovely lady, that
Steve.
would be an absolute
Hold on.
dream.
Sweet.
Sometimes
Steve.
it can be challenging to find someone who doesn't write
Just
her
gotta
off
go to
based off
Connor.
the diagnosis.
Here we go.
Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. You okay?
I'm nervous too.
Connor's in
Yours.
season 2.
Bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of those people. I wanted to, like, every single one that came up, I wanted to be like, Danny.
Yeah, right.
Like, I want to, like, say who everybody is, but I didn't want to be annoying.
Yeah.
So that was the season 1 trailer. There's been 2 seasons of Love on the Spectrum, and I don't think I thought much about it. I mean, I'm a big bachelorette person, so I do like reality dating shows. Or I historically have. I've missed the last couple. I missed The Golden Bachelor. Can you believe that? Everybody loved it, and I didn't watch it. But typically, I know. Well, it didn't turn out so well, as we know. They
Oh.
got married and now they're getting
How many of them are still together out of the 48 seasons that we've done?
Well, Golden Bachelor's there's only been
no,
one.
no, just in general.
I'm sure.
Who's the fire guy? That's it.
No, there's another couple. I think her name starts with a J. JoJo. I think she's still married.
Not JoJo Siwa.
No, no.
Okay.
That's a different story.
Yes, it is.
But there are some that are together and are married. I think she's on The Ringer now. What is her name? She's still married to Brian. I'm forgetting her name. Anyway, there are some, but it's rare. I mean, this is a hard
I'm surprised
reality
anybody
TV.
makes it through. It's
Right.
such a silly idea, and it's not the way most relationships start.
Right. And it's not a real world. So I guess my point is that you can fall in some kind of love, meaning where you're like really attached to a person, or where within the context, they are the one that stands out to you. I get like when people are like, this is fake, this isn't real. I really think people are having experiences, not everybody, but I think some people really feel like they have fallen in love. Now, will that stand the test of time once you get thrown into the real world? I hate to connect this to something that's not as great, but when it comes to addiction, people get really like, oh, good, this person's going to rehab. Like, oh, now this person's everything's going to be different. And when someone goes to rehab, that's like step one.
Yeah.
You have to then bring all of that learning and transition it into your real life.
Yeah.
And it's the integration that actually creates the change.
Yeah.
Rehab is just the detox, the learning the tools, the acknowledging the addiction, and then friends, whatever. And then you have to integrate that. And that's the work.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing when you get off this show. Can you transition that relationship to the real world?
That's exactly right. So let's get back to Love on the Spectrum.
Okay.
Do you want me to start, or you want to start?
Well, I'm going to go a certain direction. So why don't you just share your feelings about it?
So I just want to say that if you listen to the show for a while, you have heard me talk about my sometimes challenges with getting into my body from a feeling sensation. And I just want to say, when I'm watching the show, my heart bursts open. And I love it so much. And I don't know what it is about it. And I don't know if I even want to figure out what it is about this show. Some of it is about the way the men show up are in many ways so much more mature than typical men.
Yeah.
They're so much nicer.
Yeah.
They're so much kinder. They're so much.
They were very respectful.
They're so respectful
of themselves and others.
their partners, people they're dating, their parents. I don't know. And when I first, I just knew, I just fell in love with it. And if there's anybody out there like me, and maybe this isn't your jam, but if you're like, I can't get into my, sorry to go archetypes, but my lover quadrant, like
Sweetie, nobody knows what that means. I'm glad I can say that back to you.
I didn't know if you're kidding or not.
Nobody knows what a lover quadrant means. You're talking
The ability to feel.
I know, but when
Right.
you say I'm going to go into archetypes, that's
Well, I
living
think
language.
Right. I think you can understand. Lover means, lover.
The lover part of you.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
the feeling part of me.
Right.
And this show is a vehicle, it's a bridge, it's an entry point for me to just burst with love with these strangers on a screen.
Yeah, and it doesn't always work out.
No, it doesn't. I do need to play a little bit of my guy Connor.
Okay.
He's my favorite. I don't know what's going to happen here, but
Of any kind?
Interesting question to ask. Why do you ask? Is my nose?
Oh, no. It's just, I was wondering if there are any foods you were allergic to.
Not that I can think of. No, I really don't like the smell of peanut butter. I don't know how it happened, but every time I see a thing of peanut butter or ketchup with it, like, oh.
Oh. Okay, let's
a lot of awkward silences on this show.
Yeah, and the experience, just to start over with Love on the Spectrum, because a lot of people have asked, is there a making fun quality, or are we like making light of something? And when I'm saying we, I mean people who are watching. That's not how I feel at all. I can't speak for anybody else who watches the show. I don't know, but I can tell you that the producer, the guy who's with their families, seems absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
I actually started following him on Instagram last night. Everybody's on the show seems to really like him and feel safe with him.
Yeah.
And I don't think at all I think his intention is to do exactly what the trailer says. People who are, and it's not just people on the spectrum, people who have Downs, people who have Williams syndrome, people who are just developmentally delayed in some way or have different kind of personalities. Everybody would like to find love and connection. And there's such a misunderstanding that we have, that we believe if you're different in one way, then you're different in all the ways.
Yeah.
And that's not at all the case. And I think if you have worked with people in any category that we would call different, neurodiverse in any way, you know that, you get it, you understand that we're just all want the same thing, but a lot of people are removed.
Well, and what it helps me with is because I've taken a deep dive. So when I see people on the street that are neurodiverse, I think I'm much better equipped to be able to be with those people.
Well, your statement is interesting, because what do you mean see people on the street? Because you don't know who is neurodiverse.
You don't, but you can take guesses.
Well, you can. And I'm not trying to make you defensive. What I'm saying is I think some people could take offense to that because you're saying I see people when really there's a lot of people who are neurodiverse and you have no idea.
Totally true.
Right.
I'm
So
talking
you're
about
speaking more of physical
people that
attributes.
present themselves neurodiverse.
Yes.
I feel like because I've taken a deep dive with these people, just observing them.
Correct.
I have much more understanding, and it's less different.
Right.
I mean, that's the bottom line, because I've been spending 8 hours with these people watching a screen. It's just, I think it's going to help me later today when I happen to run into somebody. I will have a better ability to understand and connect
in a way that's very typical.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I'm not using typical in a neurological way. I mean, just typical, like we all want the same thing, the respect and the understanding and our ability to sit, because you and I watch the show and there are a lot of awkward silences, but as JC always says, but yes, they're uncomfortable sometimes. They say, wow, I'm uncomfortable. They share, but it's not as uncomfortable as we sometimes make it be.
Yeah.
Like we're such placaters sometimes in relationship that we can't handle any kind of discomfort. Yeah. And I think that because we just want everyone to like us and everything to go smoothly. And I think, one of the greatest gifts, like if, and I think you and I can both say this in some ways, maybe there's a little different, but the greatest gifts of my life have been working with children, being with the elderly, and working with people who are neurodiverse or who are, even if it be, so there's neurodiversity, that's its own thing, but people who have emotional challenges, people who have behavioral challenges, people who are categorized in mental illness category, or just people who are struggling with whatever. The ability to do that in life as a career is the greatest, because then things don't seem that, how do I say this? You see the interconnectedness of all of us, right?
Course.
It's all the same.
Well, yeah, like there's one person, like, Danny's a trip.
Danny.
And,
Sweet Danny.
she wants to find a partner, and she talks about sex and kissing and all these things. And, they're drinking alcohol. Like I didn't know I think it depends. It's an individual choice for every other person, but they're drinking on the show, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. I didn't know. I don't know.
It's enlightening.
Yeah, it's totally enlightening.
I loved that because Adon was like, he called his parents. Yeah. He's like, how long does it take for this alcohol to get through my system?
Yes.
And I was wondering, is he driving or is he just worried about feeling?
Yes.
I didn't know why that is.
The bottom line is I judge that we need to be with people, in front of people, dealing with people. And the only way that all people is by being with them.
Correct.
And this is just a kind of a shortcut for me to be better at it when I run into somebody that is neurodiverse. That's all.
Well, and the thing is that there's kinds of research, there's data research, qualitative, quantitative, but there's also like the kind of research where you're removed, and then the research where you're with people and actually talking to people. And I so much more prefer that. I think that we need data researchers. I'm very grateful. But sometimes when I'm reading a book or whatever it may be, and someone's sharing all this data with me, I'm like, do you know any of these people? Because like, this sounds so, it's not alive at all. It's so stagnant. It's
on
so
a paper, it's on
absolute.
the screen. Yeah.
And it so doesn't have the nuance in it, because there's like these declarations about the, teen girls, this is what they're experiencing. And I'm like, teen girls are not a monolith. They're not all the same. Yes, there is some data about certain stats have gone up. I've seen that. In real time, I've seen that, but it doesn't go up in the way we terrify parents.
Yeah.
With this data. And we don't need to be that terrified. We just need to pay attention to the person that's in front of us. So I just think that I agree with you. I'm very grateful. And there's a season 3 coming out.
Yeah.
But one of the offshoots, and again, Todd, you add whatever you want, because I know you may not be done talking about the show.
No, that's fine. We can go.
But is Tanner, who's on season 2.
Yeah. Love Tanner.
Tanner is great, and he is lovely in his demeanor and very excited to meet people. And he, his mom said something on the show that really struck a nerve for me, because I just agree with it so much. And she said, Tanner, when Tanner was young, he was obviously different. She didn't know exactly what was going on. I can't remember when he was diagnosed. But she said that she was working so hard to get him to have the right therapist, to have the right physical therapy, to have the right teacher. And she's like, and I was on him and on the whole culture around them, trying to get what he needed so he could be different, better, like what word, and I can't remember what word she was using, but she said, what I realized, we got to a point where I realized that Tanner just needed me to love him as he was. And once she did that, he made friends, he opened up, he thrived. And did you find that clip by any chance?
I did. I got a little bit of Tanner.
Okay, go ahead.
And I bought some. Have you ever been bullied before?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, so I was bullied just one time. I was crying because I was upset about it. Have you ever punched someone? Sometimes when you got mad?
Yeah.
That's okay. It happens sometimes, like when we're little. Okay. Okay. Here comes our burgers.
All right.
Thank you, Reagan. Thank you, Reagan.
He's on a date with Kate, who Todd loves Kate.
I love Kate. And like, I feel it in my throat right now. He's wearing a bow tie.
I know.
Like
So
this guy's
sweet.
got more class than I do. Like, I'm not even kidding. He's holding her chair out.
I know.
Has flowers for her.
Uh-huh.
She looks beautiful. She's got her nails done. Oh
Her
my God.
lipstick
I
on,
feel like
yeah.
crying right now.
I
Like,
know.
I love it.
I know. Well, and that's the thing, is there is the pieces. I'm sure we could, if you and I went deep, we could talk about the pieces that are missing. One of the pieces that's not as obvious. I'm not saying there is no ego, because of course there's ego. Like,
Sure.
think about James and his hair.
Yeah.
And the way he looks. James is very, very much thinks about his appearance, but it's a different kind. It's less adapting to all the social norms and more about how they feel about themselves. And so there's an authenticity to it that doesn't feel like they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. There's like I want to be my best self versus I want to be like everybody else.
Can I give you a little bit of James?
Yeah, sure.
This is James' opinion on women with pets.
Okay.
Doesn't have any pets or any children, Oh, yeah, it's like
Good, the therapeutic,
Oh.
and loving.
yeah, I know, but I think I don't want to have to compete with a pet for the woman's attention. That was the thing.
Oh, I love James. I love everybody on this show.
Okay. And here's a big perk, because I want to go back to Tanner's mom, but let me take a
Okay.
little detour.
Okay.
The families on this show are rock solid.
Oh my God.
The families are so
It's
connected.
You want to know why? 'Cause
Why?
When Connor was struggling during the speed dating thing.
Yeah.
And his mom like nailed every single thing that you should say to somebody
Yeah.
who's struggling in the moment.
Yeah.
She had this energy. And I think the reason they're so good at it is because they're very well practiced at it.
Because their child has
Yes,
taught them to be
yes.
that way. And so that's the thing, is whenever we talk about children who have different needs, if it be emotional, behavioral, neurodiversity, they make, God, it sounds so like, because it's not like, oh, great, now they can teach me things. But once you get through some of these things where you learn because your child is helping you look in the mirror and helping you see them more clearly and helping you see the world more clearly, you are a better person. You are literally a better I mean, that's kind of what I mean about working with children made me a better person. Being with the elderly all the time, because my parents, that was my life for so long, was, you know, being in an assisted living and, you know, just being with elderly people all the time. And then being with people who have differences in the way they think, it makes us better people.
Yeah.
We become deeper, we care
Yes.
more, and we don't do the us them thing.
Yep.
You know, because we're like, oh no, they want the exact same thing. And if I, you know, and I've said to the girls, and I'm glad, Todd, that, you know, and some of it hasn't been by our doing, it's just been about because of my parents, you know, living where they did or whatever, or your mom or your dad, like they have been really exposed to a lot of people just by the nature of our family, because I don't want them to be afraid of
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be afraid of what is different to them. And you know, and these are things that are hard to teach once you get past a certain point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I see things sometimes in older kids, sometimes 20 somethings where they'll be like, oh, I don't like being around the elderly, or they scare me. Sweetie, it's very Lloyd Dobler
Yeah, Lloyd Dobler.
and
That's right.
Diane.
Court.
And, you know, and it's the same thing with children. There's a lot of, you know, adults and children. I talk to teenagers who are like, oh, I don't like being around kids. And I understand, because sometimes it's just because it's chaotic or it feels out of control. Like, it's not that means they're not good people, but we learn so much from those experiences. But the other thing about Connor's mom is that Connor gets upset sometimes when his family gets too amped up about his dates.
Yes.
And his mom, understandably, gets amped up because she's psyched that Connor may have some outside connections.
Yeah, because he's lacking a lot of outside connections.
Correct. So she's understandably like, this is going to be so great. So sometimes Connor feels that and is like, stop it.
Yeah.
And she's very introspective. She had a good talk with her other son. Her other son was great.
Mhm.
He's like, listen, Mom, you got to relax.
Yeah.
You know, you can't put that kind of pressure on him. And she totally got it.
Mhm.
So you were talking about how she says the perfect thing to him.
And she doesn't always.
And she's still learning, just like we all are.
Right.
You know, sometimes our kids come to us and we are so good.
Yeah.
We just like calm them. And I'm talking about Todd and I'm talking about all of us. And sometimes they come to us and we just blow it.
Mhm.
And the goal is then, what did I do there that I could have done differently?
Yeah. So you wanted me to remind you to go back to Tanner's mom.
So I think what she said, and again, reiterating what Tanner's mom said was, I just had to learn to love him as he is.
Yeah.
And then she said, and then Tanner blossomed.
Yeah.
And I believe this statement for all children. I think that I don't care who you are, if parents just could make their first priority, I'm just going to love this kid for who they are and not assess your connection with them by what you perceive to be their lovability, which I mean, like, their grades were good.
Yeah.
They're being nice to you. They have a big friend group that you love. They are shining in their class, or they had a big recital that you were really proud of. And then all of a sudden they get a bunch of attention from you. They start to connect their lovability to them performing for you.
Correct.
And if you can just like your kid, regardless if they're on a stage or, you know, and then, so one more thing, Todd, and then I know you have something to say. I actually looked up that night that we were watching it. I wanted to see like what the research was about just the whole idea of just love your kid. And it's so funny because all the albums, but listening to music, all of the posts that came up said things like, when love isn't enough, when just loving your kid isn't enough. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what I mean by loving them. I don't mean that love them and then be permissive.
Yeah.
I mean, just like them.
And the tricky part is love can have so many different interpretations.
Thank you. Good. Yeah.
And I've shared with this audience a million times, but I was in a coaching cohort one time and we were challenging each other and I got sick of being challenged and I got in the middle. I'm like, can't we just love each other? And then the one guy said, what makes you think what we're doing isn't love?
Beautiful.
And I will never forget that. It's really, really helpful. But it's tricky because when I challenge, many of the times I'm challenging, it's not coming from love. whether it's with
Yeah.
my daughters or my friends or with you, it's because I want to be right or whatever.
Correct.
So it's super tricky.
It is. I remember even Shafali's, one of her, like, I think it was on Super Soul Sunday, which used to be on a long time ago. She was with Oprah. And I remember her saying, we just need to love our kids less. We need to not be so in love with them that we are like attached to them and focused on what their needs are. And I know exactly what Shafali meant.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what she meant. And I don't disagree with her in the context of what she was saying.
But if you take that headline, she would get crucified for that.
Well, or some people would say, Cathy would get crucified for saying just love them more.
Right.
You know, so it depends on your viewpoint, because some people, her point is your over attachment to your kid
Exactly.
is a problem because you're not giving them space. And I'm saying the exact same thing, but with the opposite version of love, which is just like your kid for who they are and quit trying to make them into something and form a relationship with them. Like, the other thing that's really heartbreaking to hear is a lot of times, and again, when you're talking to, friends have said this to me, people have said this to me in sessions, and it's totally fine to say, I love my kid, but sometimes I don't like them. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And I totally understand what parents are saying. They're basically saying, I'm feeling really angry with them or frustrated. Totally get it. But maybe never say that in front of your child.
Yeah. Bad idea.
Bad idea. Because if you need to release that with your therapist or your friends, so be it. But you're saying to your kid, first of all, you're doing the I love you, but, which is not a great way to communicate. And then you're saying, I don't like you. And sometimes, like, for example, if Todd right now, and you don't have to do this, honey, but Todd says, I love you all the time. I say, I love you all the time to him. We're like, love you, love you. If Todd walked in the kitchen and goes, Cathy, I really like you, that would mean so much to me, because what he's saying, and you don't have to do that. I'm not setting you up.
Sweetie, are you ready? Let me get into it here. Sweetie, let me look in my eyes. Let's do eye contact.
Which one, in the Zoom or over?
Right there.
Where?
Sweetie,
I got to look.
I really do like you a lot.
Oh, thank you.
I do. And I know it's forced and all that, but I do, honestly.
I like you too.
And I know people will be like, probably throwing up in their mouth right now
I hope
because it's all, you're schmoopy.
You're
You're
schmoopy.
schmoopy. But of course I like you most of the time.
Well, see, that even is not a great thing to say.
I just screwed up. But aren't there times when you don't like me?
There are times when you frustrate me.
There you go. That's what I meant to say.
I don't never not like you.
That's true.
Like, I
It's
have never
language.
been like, I don't like Todd.
Language is power.
I mean, I wouldn't be married to you if I didn't like you.
Yes.
I know that for sure, because I dated a bunch of guys that I thought I loved or very attracted to that I didn't like. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, where you're like, there's something here, but I really don't like you.
Well, this is language, and there's a discernment that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I could say, hey, right now I'm feeling frustrated because you left the toilet seat up, Todd, or whatever. Like, that's a lot different saying, I don't like you right now. So
I mean, and again, I feel like I'm testing a 20-year-long relationship, but I don't think I have ever said to you, I don't like you.
No.
Yeah. I think that, to me, that would be a really low blow.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have a relationship where you do that, you understand it, this is just semantics for me. Those words mean a lot to me. I also wouldn't tell someone I love them that I don't love. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you choose your words super carefully.
Yeah.
And I try my best, but this last thing is a perfect example of what I just said. That, like, there's sometimes when I don't like you. Of course, that's not true.
What that means then, okay, and I'm an adult, so I understand our relationship and I'm comfortable. But with a child, then they are going to do things to make sure you like them. They're instead of like, I have been accepted by my parents in all these different ways. And sometimes I'm frustrating and annoying, but they don't stop liking me because of it.
Yeah.
Like, think about that setup, you guys. And some of us may experience this in our own childhood. Like, look at yourself as a parent, look at yourself in partnership, and then look at your history. If one of my parents said to me, I don't really like you, I don't know. I wouldn't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
Like, because then you're going to feel like you need to do something to make them like you.
Yeah.
And again, this gets it. Sometimes parents don't bluntly say, I don't like you. Sometimes there's an understanding that if a kid gets all A's, if a kid performs, if they're always thoughtful and respectful and never say anything wrong, they get love.
Yeah.
And there tends to be a kid in every family, and sometimes more than one, that pushes that a little bit.
Yeah.
Not to be manipulative,
It's just
but
where they
their
are.
their personality is kind of like, I'm not going to just do things to kiss your butt. Like,
Remember the I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, you showed me that video of there's 4 sets of babies.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
What, it's not
It was
triplets.
it was quadruplets.
Quadruplets.
Mhm.
And the 4 of them, they're like what, 6 months old?
Yeah, they're
Something like
just
that?
babies. They're like all sitting on a blanket,
They're all sitting on a blanket, and like one is like the Joker,
Right.
making everybody laugh,
like
with
falling
falling
over
over. And then there's one that's like laughing hysterically.
at that one.
And then
Yeah.
there's one that's totally distracted, looking at something else. And I said to you that the parents of these children are going to be able to look at their kids in 20 years
Yep.
and connect the dots between it. So to your point, like, yeah, there's some kids who challenge, there's kids who love less, there's kids who love more, there's kids, and that's just the way they show up.
It is. And what if, and I think you and I have talked about these things all the time, because and again, I'm not perfect at this. I need your help too. So it's not always coming from me, because sometimes I can't see it clearly. But I do think that you get really touched by if the girls are really like, oh, Dad, I'll show up, or I'll do this. And you just get really like into them. You know what I mean? And if one of our girls is kind of like, I can't, or I'm going to do something else, it's not that you've ever withheld love, but I don't want you to prop up a people-pleasing kind of situation.
Here's the deal. So I'll own my piece. Like, if one of my kids goes out of their way to be kind to our niece or my dad or your sister or whatever, there's a thoughtfulness
Yeah.
that goes above and beyond.
Correct.
I'm just like, it fills me up in a certain way that I am like so appreciative of
Mhm.
that. But our kids do all these other different things, but it doesn't fill me up as much, so I value it less. And that's not
Perfect.
right.
And I think the conversations we have is you will sometimes, because there's certain things you value, one of our girls will do one of those things and you're just like, wow, that's so great. I wish the others would do that. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Did you see what the others did in A, B, or C, or what they did last Thursday, or what they're doing tomorrow?
And my answer is probably not,
You
because I
don't see
don't
it.
value it as much as I don't see it as objectively. I'm
Correct.
looking at myself, you, our kids, my world through a very subjective experience.
Right.
And I tend to elevate certain things and devalue other things.
Beautiful. And that's the only, what else can we ask of ourselves? Like, because there's no way, talking about being self-aware doesn't mean stop being who you are.
Yeah.
It means notice what you're doing.
Yeah.
So then your kids don't have to pay a price for you being unaware of why you elevate certain things.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of always been my thing, is notice these other things so you don't get so uptight about this.
Sure.
And so let's go back to what Tanner's mom said. She said, once I just loved him, he thrived.
Boom.
And I don't think parents trust that.
So that's like a drop the mic moment.
Right.
His mom said, once I just loved him for who he was.
For who he was.
Then he thrived.
And you know what? She didn't mean I stopped taking him to physical therapy.
Yeah.
She didn't mean I decided to pull him out of all of the classes.
Yeah.
She just stopped being so hyper, like on top of him about you need to be different.
Yeah, she wanted him to be different
Correct.
than he was, and he's
Correct.
wired a little bit differently.
Yes.
And she tried to like
Make him
therapize him
different.
into being more normal
Correct.
or more typical.
Typical. Yeah.
And then she let go of that.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden Tanner started thriving. And that is a lesson. Autism, no autism, that's a people thing.
Correct.
Right?
And it's for every single kid we have. I actually, I wrote something down because what I hear from parents, because believe me, I tell this to parents all the time and they will say things to me like, you don't understand. It's different with my kid.
Yeah, right.
My kid's manipulating me. I've heard everything. And I honor it because from where they are in the process, I think it's true.
Yeah.
I don't think you can just change one day with your kid and all of a sudden they're going to be like, you're loving me for who I am. That's not the way it works. You have to do something consistent over time take responsibility for the times that you didn't. And you have to show up in a way with your kids that they then recognize as different.
Yeah.
And you don't just get to do it once and then say, well, it didn't work. So first of all, a lot of parents talk about my kids are manipulating me. There really is no manipulation in the early stage of life, like maybe through being 8 years old or 7 years old.
They don't understand the concept.
Oh, because they're learning, they're not lying to get at you. They're learning what lying is.
Yeah.
They're trying it. Does this work? Just like a 2-year-old tries to hit, or they're trying to figure this out. They've never done anything. And so so instead of being like, oh my gosh, my kid's a liar, it's like, no, they're trying lying.
Yeah.
And
new stuff.
you have to then talk to them about why that doesn't work in relationship and how that can be harmful to them and what they feel like. It's an opportunity. Gosh, do you remember all of when we did shows when our girls were little, how often we said that? It's an opportunity. And then let's talk about why an older kid manipulates. And I don't even like that word. I'm just using it because parents say this. Number one, they want attention, right? Number two, they want control. And number three, they want to feel more powerful. So can you see how if you just love them for who they are, they're getting the attention.
They won't be lacking those three things.
They won't be lacking control, and they'll feel powerful in their own self, not over you, but powerful in who they are. We're so hierarchical. I can't say the word. Hierarchical.
I have no
I
idea.
can't say it, but we're in such a hierarchy mindset that we're like, I need to have power over my kid. I need to have, if you're Harrison Butker, you want to have power over your wife. You want to have power over what women believe at a graduation ceremony. You want to have power over, whoever it may be. And as parents, I just throw that in there. Sorry, everybody.
Well, most people, maybe some people know who you're talking about, but will you just, because, let's let people in on.
Okay. I think most people know this, but I will just share, since I made Todd share what this love quadrant was of archetypes. Last week, I think it happened on Tuesday of last week, so it's probably been a full week. It must have happened the weekend before, because it was a graduation ceremony. Harrison Butker is the kicker for the Kansas City. He is two-time Super Bowl winning kicker. He gave a speech at a Catholic school. And by the way, I teach at a Catholic school, university. So I'm just saying that because some people have been like, well, what do you expect? It's a Catholic university. And I teach at one, and I would expect different. He took the time in his speech to kind of talk about a bunch of people and groups negatively. But the one that really hit home was, he said, I'll paraphrase, for all the women here, I bet, you feel good about your accomplishments, but the truth is women's lives don't really start till they become a wife and mother, and until they lean into their role of being a homemaker. And he's saying this to women who just graduated from college, right?
Would it be helpful to play this, or would we rather not elevate that?
I don't care. I mean, it's up to you.
I don't know.
It's 20 minutes.
I know, there's just still.
To this point in your young lives, I want to speak directly to you briefly, because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation.
Good enough?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing that people are missing about this. He can do that. He and his wife have chosen that, and more power to them. They are a single income family because he is an NFL football player. Most families cannot be a single income family. And a lot of women and a lot of men don't want that kind of setup. They want to both work, or there's a lot of single mothers, or there's a lot of single dads. Not a lot, but you know what I mean? There are people who have a completely different situation. And to say to a group of people and to speak for women as a man, he can speak for himself and his family. That's fine. But to tell other women what what vocation,
Yeah, what they should value and
what
not
they should value and lean into. It's just very, and again, there's a 20-minute speech behind that's just a piece of it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about should he or shouldn't he have, or, you don't understand him, or free speech. I'm not going to. It's very similar to the man bear conversation, where this is more about the belief that what's best. It is a power over situation, that women should be fulfilling their role that they were destined to have, which makes no sense, because I just feel it's just so funny, because I'm having so many deep thoughts. I feel like in some ways, and I know this isn't true but there's like the mentality has gotten worse than the 80s.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And I know that can't be true, because not with Gen Z around and with millennials around. I just, they're so far, the women I know, they're so self-possessed, and they have such, goals for themselves. And some of it is about having a family, but they have other goals as well.
Sure.
But I also, I don't know if you noticed, Todd, but Dabney Coleman died last week.
The guy from 9 to 5?
Yes.
Oh, I love
And
that guy.
that is what I wanted to bring up, is 9 to 5 is one of my absolute favorite movies from the 80s. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen 9 to 5. Like, it's insane. And that was my mindset when I was a kid. Is like, and again, they were pointing out, Mr. Hart was not a great guy, and he was doing all these awful things and chasing Dora Lee around the desk. And, it was very of its time, but the message of it is women know how to do this, and women should be in charge. And so I grew up with that, or working girl, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me that I'm sitting here watching a speech where somebody's telling me, and I know someone say he's not telling you. I know, but it feels like that.
Yeah.
There is a value system that he's throwing out there on women and saying, you need to lean into doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then he also goes on to say, so I get to be the man I am because she stays home and does all these things. So she's empowering me to do whatever I want, to live my career as a football player.
Yeah.
So it's rough, man.
It's rough.
It can be rough out there.
Yeah. And whatever, he could say whatever he wants, and we
he
can
did.
say what we can, what we want to say in response to what he said.
Correct. And that's the thing, is I can only say how it made me feel. And it angered me, not only personally, but it frustrated me for all the women who were sitting there. There was a talking down to. Believe me, we know what it feels like to be talked down to. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know how many situations I've been in like that, where what they're saying, which is sit down.
Yeah.
Sit down. Stop talking. We're too well versed in that when someone's like, no, he's just sharing his life, we're like, come on.
Yeah.
We know what that feels like. So that was my diverging.
Yeah, there's a little detour, which is fine. So we have as much as 8 minutes left before we have to close shop. Is there anything for sure you want to make sure we talked about?
So let's finish about the people, like loving people for who they are.
Yeah. Let's
So
go back
just
over there.
in,
Gets better.
yeah, I know it's so hard. And I know that even people listening to the show get uncomfortable with these things, but you guys, this is like my job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean my job is to talk about every inappropriate thing that's said, but this is what, like, I have to share that this is what the majority of women are feeling. Not all, but if we don't talk about it, then everyone thinks it's okay.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's the sit down piece.
Yeah.
Is if someone's like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable, stop talking about that. You're telling me to sit down. You're saying the way you feel about it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let's just keep doing what we're doing. And so I think there is a way we can talk about this where we can hear each other. And unfortunately, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, you missed a class we did last night about this, is how to talk about difficult issues like this with each other, because my goal is never to just offend Todd and piss him off. I know sometimes I do offend him, but I then try and do things to get us back in a place where we can converse. And I'm sure, and he says things to me sometimes and I get frustrated or offended, and he has to work to, instead of just giving up, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But again, ending with Tanner and his mom, the whole idea of loving our kids and liking our kids, and noticing what they're doing well necessitates our ability to break down in our minds what success means, to tap into what our fears are about our kids going into the world. Because, you know, another thing that I think this is connected to is we tend to emotionally regulate through our kids.
Yep.
That if we're feeling anxious about the world, then we say to our kid, go join this club, go be on this team, go volunteer, go get a job, go be success in every way. And then I don't have to feel bad.
I would guess that most of us are doing that most of the time.
And I do it
I
too.
need to self-regulate. Something just happened in front of me. So I could either try to look inward and explore what's going on inside of me and where does this come from and what am I scared of? Or I could just try to change the outside world to regulate my nervous system. And that outside world's a pretty big place. So
it sure is.
Instead, let's regulate our inside world and then try not to control and fix and manage everything outside of us.
Well, and you're saying control the outside world, but I'm being more specific is we would control our children.
Yeah, they're part of the outside world.
Okay, but take the rest of the world out of it. For you and I, like say you come home and you're feeling frustrated about money because our car is being worked on,
Yes,
which
it
it is for the 80th time. You then go to, do our girls have a job?
Yeah.
Like you get frustrated about money, so then you get worried about them working.
Yeah.
So you're regulating by wanting them to be working so then you can feel better about this situation.
Yeah.
So it's like we're not even trying to change the outside world. We're just trying to change these kids in front of us so we feel better. Now, nuance, your point is well taken. But again, as you would talk about in Men Living language, are you above the line or below the line? Because you're not really asking the question.
Definitely below.
You're below. So, and same with me, like because I struggle, deal with anxiety on a daily basis. I then I'm over attuned to my kids. And sometimes I need to really just not get emotionally involved at all.
Sure.
And that's very hard for me. I have to really pay attention and like, you know, Todd and I were having this conversation the other night and I was telling him something I did that I felt proud of. And it's sometimes not noticeable from the outside, the shifts I'm making. It's how I'm allowing myself to regulate internally without making them do something different or say something to me to make me feel better about it. Like just let them be frustrated.
You're talking about Chipotle, right?
I'm talking about a few. You're talking about the guacamole?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one example for sure. But I kind of feel like it happens every day, like 8 times.
Yeah. Kids are going to give us a lot of opportunities. And if you miss this one, don't worry. You're going to get another chance tomorrow.
So, you know, we'll just end on the note that, you know, just love your kid as they are, like them. And when someone's like, but I can't because they're awful or this or that, can you find things that you like and start to point that out to them? Because a lot of the anger they have at you is because you're not noticing that thing.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
And if you notice it, then you wouldn't have to worry about all the other
It's
stuff.
like a vicious cycle. And then when can you create a communication with them where when they're not feeling seen, they can tell you. But don't go to your kid and be like, kid, I mean, you can tell them about your life, but their parenting it's not a mutual, you're giving more than they are.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
I just found out what I want to talk about in this week's podcast.
Oh, shoot. We just finished.
We'll save it for next week.
What is it?
The difference between pop psychology and actual psychology.
Oh, interesting.
You showed it to me. It was the Instagram thing.
Yes.
That's really interesting. So maybe we'll do that next time.
You want to read one of them?
Sure, I'll read one of them.
Okay.
So the difference, so on the left hand is pop psychology, and on the right, it's actual psychology. So pop psychology says being triggered means that something makes you uncomfortable or annoyed.
Okay.
That's pop psychology.
Okay.
Actual psychology is a trigger is something that causes a sudden increase in symptoms like flashbacks in PTSD or compulsions in OCD. A trigger is not just a source of general discomfort.
Correct.
So we as people living in 2024, we hear that term all the time. I'm getting triggered by you. I could see like, I'm mad at you right now. Like that's not triggering.
No, because you're not having this somatic response. It's not connected to the trauma that you experience. It's just, you're frustrated like a normal human.
Yeah.
And, you know, same with my favorite, I'm sure it's on there, is gaslighting.
Yes.
You know, like, you're not agreeing with me, you're gaslighting
Yeah.
me. And that's not what gaslighting is.
Yeah.
Gaslighting is a much more, obvious, trying to make you feel crazy about what you're saying.
Pop psychology says gaslighting is when someone lies to you or tries to convince you that you're wrong. But the
Mhm.
actual psychology is gaslighting is an elaborate strategy
Correct.
where you are manipulated to question your reality, memory, or sanity, not just a disagreement over what happened.
Right. It'd be like if I came in here and I said, Todd, you moved my chair.
Yeah.
You took my chair. I know you did because
Yeah.
I saw you do it yesterday.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't remember doing that. I know you don't, but I saw you.
Mm.
I'm doing it on purpose to make him think he's missing something.
Yeah.
And then I hold tight to that to a point where he starts to believe that he's missing something
Yeah.
and that I'm right. And then I make him apologize for something he didn't even do.
Yeah.
Do you see? It becomes, and again, that's like just one of a million examples, but it's a scheme.
It is. So join Team Zen, get your free water bottle, $25 a month. So technically it's not free, but you get all the things that Team Zen offers, which is a lot. So check out the link in the show notes. I also want to say hi to Jeremy Kraft. He's a bald-headed beauty. He does painting and remodeling throughout the Chicagoland area. 630-956-1800. And I guess keep trucking.
Yeah. Have a good week.